We are going to be installing a hydraulic steering assist onto the Suburban. I have the steering box out already, and I have it drilled and tapped. I took some pictures, but I did it at work, so I couldn't take any videos of it. What's happening right now is my steering box is pushing, well, not pushing, but it's not really strong enough to push the tires when it's alright when it's at a dead still, but if there's anything like load on the engine at a standstill, it won't turn. It'll have a hard time. So I took it out. To do this, obviously probably gonna need a solid axle swap to do it, but you can kind of do it on anything. It's kind of the same. It doesn't matter what make and model. When I did the solid axle swap, I cut these braces off right there. There's two of them, and I'm gonna have to cut it back here to run the lines. I haven't done that yet. And then I cut this, so removing my steering box was a lot easier for me because this cross bracing wasn't here. I moved it up towards the front right here, so the steering box sits up here. All I did was take the two lines out, take the shaft thingy out, and then the steering box just came right out. This is what we're gonna be needing. This goes on the hydraulic ram. I'll put a link to this in the description, along with the fittings that I'm using and everything for it. I'm gonna use a PTFE hose, AN6, and I just painted these, so I just came off. Great. It's not dry yet. I just painted these, so I'm letting them dry for now. And then this is actually a PSC hydraulic ram. I just took the sticker off and I painted it orange. I don't know if I'm gonna leave it orange. I just want to see how it looks under there. This is everything we'd be needing for this. It also comes with these brackets. I already welded the other side to this thing. The tube clamp is from Barnes 4-wheel drive, and it doesn't come with these set screw holes or this. It's just a clamp, but you're able to weld onto it pretty easily. So I just welded these onto there, and then I milled the top of this flat and then drilled and tapped for set screws. That'll help me help it hold onto the tie rod better. And then we're going to be needing some AN fittings. So I have four 90 degree fittings, and it'll go into an AN, go into the hose here. This is the hose I used on the air compressor, and I had enough left, so I think I won't be needing any extra ones. And then for the box side, I tapped it with an NPT fitting. So I also got these two. They're pretty much the same. They're NPT on male on one side and AN male on the other side. This will be going on this one here. It's longer, and then this hole right here, I milled it flat, so you'll have to mill this flat to be able to drill and tap it. Well, you don't have to, but it makes it easier. And then this one, there's like a little thing here. You can eyeball it. You just go straight. A lot of people don't say this, but this tube, well, it looks like a tube right here. You can kind of see on the side. That's where it goes. Okay, so like I was saying, there's a hole here and a tube here, and that's where that second hole should be. So you got to drill and tap this to run lines to the ram so that it works. An easier way of doing it is you can drill and tap this one. It's aluminum and it's pretty thick. You can drill and tap that, and then this back piece right here, you can replace that with an aftermarket one that's a lot thicker, and they both would be NPT, and then you just do the same thing. But this was free and they're right next to each other, so I just went with this route. The only thing is this second hole, I don't know if you can see that, but it's not that thick, so This is for, I made this for the second one. Same thing as the other one, as this one, but I notched it out because there's like a 1/4 inch. Hold on, there we go. There's like a 1/4 inch hole in there, and that's what this will be sitting on, like that. That way it can go through and into here, because I kind of oversized this a little bit, and this goes down pretty much all the way, almost. So this notch will help with the flow into here a lot better than it just sitting, or else it would have had to sit like pretty much up to here. So it would have been holding on with like 3 threads. So I feel like this would hold it in a little better. And then this side, not really a problem, just drill it. It's pretty thick, but if you were to drill it all the way, I mean, you'd have to, but there is a little shaft in there that's pretty close to the top of it, so you might nick that with a drill. I did this on a drill press and a mill, so on a Bridgeport, so I had control over how deep it was going, which was a lot better. I didn't disassemble this at all. I just grabbed the magnet and I pulled it all out. And if you turn this back and forth slightly, it'll push the fluids out, one of these, and then it'll push all the metal chips out. So I found that helpful. Now, I read that Teflon tape's okay to use on a hydraulic system, and I'm also going to be using blue Loctite on these NPT fittings because I don't want them coming off, especially this one, because if it turns this way, then I won't have steering the other way. So I'm using blue Loctite. I read that you can use blue Loctite with PTFE or Teflon tape together, and they should work fine, and then that'll hopefully keep this from spinning. I also marked, I'm gonna mark it more, but I also marked the ends here so I know which way it's facing when it's in. The other reason why I'm doing this is, before, what's happening is if you remember, I welded that in. Not really a big, it's not causing any problems for now. I mean, hopefully it won't, but I don't want the steering to be all focused on that, you know. So this will allow less strain on the steering box itself, and then put it on the ram. The ram's going to be doing most of the work from now on. And then the other thing is I was getting some death wobble, where I started getting it because I think the tires are too heavy for the steering box to actually keep straight. So when I hit a bump, it'll give me death wobble. The other reason was the bushings I had when I installed this. You can see its heim joints in there now. Yeah, right there. When I had bushings in there, it wasn't. This isn't completely straight from there to there. So the bushings were kind of at an angle, and the heim joints do a lot better job at doing angular stuff for track bars. So what was happening is, every time my suspension went up and down, the bushing would kind of compress on one side or the other, and then eventually it didn't take too long until it started getting a lot of wear. So when you shake the truck like this, you can see the bushing moving. I have a video of it, so I guess I'll just play that. Okay, go. But yeah, you can see the whole bushing just moving side to side, and that's pretty much what was happening when I turned the steering wheel back and forth. So that was part of the reason why there was a bunch of steering play in my truck too. Okay, got the other one in, but I just wanted to show, when you're putting the Teflon tape in, make sure it's not going past the threads, and you're going clockwise. Make sure it's not past the threads because you don't want it going in the tube or in the box itself or anything with when you're using Teflon, and then it's just going to be dangling in here and possibly come out and clog up the system or something like that. So I have it behind, I have it wrapped behind that top notch right there, and then put some Loctite on there. I'm going to install it. I did buy extra caps for the NPT, but if you're getting the PCS one, it already comes with caps, so you don't have to buy it. But now I have 4 at least. So I'd say don't throw those away, keep them, because if a line blows, then you can have the cap them off, and then you'll still have steering. Okay, so it rained heavily for a while, so I had to take a break. When you're taking these out, and this one's an aftermarket one, but if you have a factory one, the factory pitman arm has like 4 flats on each corner, and you pretty much just line it up with these flats on the shaft here. But if you're like me and you switch to a lowering one, this one doesn't have those flats. So what I did is I measured across from this side to this side, assuming this hole's centered, and then this one was like 2.5, and then the center was 1.25 inches from the side to the center of the hole, and it landed exactly in between those 2 notches right there, and that pretty much sits right here. So if you ever need to line this up, that's kind of like a good way I found of doing it. And then on this side, I would just when I take it out, I would just mark with a paint marker, or you can punch. You can use a center punch right where the flats are too, and then that's how you know which way the pitman arm faces when you're installing it back in. And then for this side, I'm gonna put it back in the truck, because I'll show you in a sec. I did swap out the little shaft thingy that was here, the rag joint. I swapped it out with the U-joint one, and I may or may not have put it back in the right place. So while the pitman arm's not in yet, I'll just put it back in and then use the steering to try to line that up. I don't know, easier said than done, I guess. We'll find out. Rain's kind of stopped, so I'll just put this in. I did also get these. It's leaking, so I had to cut this open to drip it, or yeah, I had to make a catch tray. Anyway, you can see this is the shallower one, and it went in more. That's because on the NPT, again, I made it a little wider, so I cut like a few threads off the end so that it sits tight in there, so it's good. It just won't. It's pretty much only for this application now. This one is just a normal one. It went in all the way, and that's how much is left. I put NPTs and thread locker on there, so hopefully they don't move. I guess we'll find out. I did cap them off just in case. I don't want anything getting in there, even though these 2 are still open. But this one's closed, or this one is, and this one's just been leaking fluid, so I'm not really worried about it. Yeah, so putting it back in the truck, it's literally just holding it up there, bolting it from the other side. A little harder when you have that brace there, but it's not too hard. I got the steering box in, and the pitman arm, and the drag link in as well. I didn't realize this the first time I put it in. The pitman arm, it's I got this off eBay, so it's an aftermarket one, and it lowers it a bit more than the factory one, which is like up here, I think, something like that. But this one, I didn't realize this the first time I put it in. When I put it in now, you can see the locking washer there and the nut here, and when I tightened it all the way up, it literally wouldn't go any tighter. This was still wobbling up and down because this needs to sit up on the splines, so the splines are slightly tapered, so the higher this sits up, the tighter it gets. And unfortunately, this thing was maxing out on the threads before I was able to push this all the way up. So I put a little spacer here. I cut it out of the 1.5 inch tube that I used on the track bar and drag link. So that kind of fit in there perfectly. I chamfered the inside a little bit so it would push it up even more, and then that's all tight now. And before I put this in, I couldn't wiggle this at all, so that probably had a little bit to do with some of the steering slop I was having too. But I'm pretty sure the play on the track bar bushings had a lot more to do with that play than this thing, because all this was doing was up and down. This was just going back and forth like 1/2 inch. Alright, so now that we fixed that, I'm pretty sure the drag link and track bar angles are going to be slightly off now. Before, I measured it a couple of times and it was always within 1/4 inch. So this mount to mount, this one's 1/4 inch lower on both sides, so they were pretty parallel. So now I'll have to get my laser down here and then check the pivot point of this to the pivot point of that and check the angle, but it shouldn't be too far off. It wasn't wiggling that much. And then I also got my steering shaft in. I did replace this with the Cunningham machine, that's what it's called. Or yeah, I ordered that online, and it pretty much gets rid of replaces the U joint or replaces the rag joint with a U joint, which makes it a lot more stiff, or less play in it. And a lot of people were wondering or worried about this thing being not collapsible. It is. It slides into the upper shaft up there, so if there was a front end collision, this will collapse in like the factory one would. Only difference is it's a U joint instead of a rag joint. Other than that, yeah, I got the axle. I turned it all the way left, or lock to lock, or bump to bump, so it does reach the bump point pretty much almost exactly at when the steering box is going from lock to lock, around the same. So it's about 3 turns, just over 3 turns for this, all the way right to all the way left, and that pretty much locks this in within that. So we're good there. I'm gonna center the axle now. I had to play with this a little bit to center the steering wheel to this box. I did move this outside, and I forgot to mark anything down when I took it out, so I had to put this back in and then go lock to lock and make sure it was actually 1.5 turns left and right. And then I pretty much just, if it was going one way too far, I would back this out and then take it over to the next teeth, put it back in, and then turn it again. So it took a couple of tries, but now it's pretty centered. So now I gotta center the axle up. So I'm just gonna clamp like a straight edge to this, to the tie rod here, and then just go lock to lock, mark it, or go all the way right, mark it, all the way left, mark it, and then just measure, I think just measure from the 2 points and then mark center, and then that should be the center of the axle. This, since I had so much slop here, my steering wheel isn't actually straight with the wheels right now, so I have to adjust the drag link as well. Alright, so I've centered the axle like that, and then I adjusted the drag link. This side's a right hand turn, this side's a left hand turn. turn, so I could just rotate this and then it'll move right or left. So the steering wheel is as straight as it's pretty straight now, but I might have to fine tune it a little bit once it starts driving. I did. So this is lock all the way that way, and then this is all the way that way to the bump stops. And then I marked the center here. So if you're wondering, on these F250 axles, at least the 05 and up ones, the steering travel is approximately 7 inches and 3/16, and the ram I got is an 8-inch travel one. So I've got some room to play with. So if you're using a Dana 60 off an F250, 7 inches and 3/16, or yeah, 3/16. So from there to here is exactly 7 inches and 3/16. I also did the same on the ram, which is a lot easier than, well, it's not hard, but the ram's going to be easier than doing it on here because you can do it outside. So I'm going to mount the back of the ram around here. Seems like a good spot. If I get it too far this way, it'll run into this on this side. So I want to make sure when it's full bump that way, this every time you steer, this gets closer to the pan. So even if it seems like it's not gonna hit, when you steer, this will get about that much closer, and then the heim joint on the ram will start bumping into this. So I want max steering that way. I want the end of the ram to be right about here, close to here, and that pretty much puts the other side about either here or here. If it ends up here, it's going to be a little complicated, so I'd rather have it here because it's a flat spot. Here and here it's flat, so I could just weld it up here and then weld the other tab down there. It's good. If it's up here, then it's also easier, but I think it makes more sense up here because it pushes it out from the axle tube a little bit, and you do need the ram to be parallel with this from the top view and from the front. So you want it parallel. Alright, so I've got it mounted here, or tacked up here. That's where I'm gonna have it on the track bar bracket. Okay, I just got to tack welded up so I could show you. Okay, so I got it as close to parallel to the tie rod as I can get it with the tabs. Don't really have time to cut new ones out, and I don't have any 1/4 inch plate here, so this will have to do. It is pretty close. If I angle this one just right, it gets pretty level from this side and there, or not level but parallel to the tie rod. And you just want to do that to make sure, since I'm using heim joints here, which is supplied with the kit with the ram, you get a lot more pivoting action or mobility with it than, say, like if I were to use bushings, which would only turn one way and then it won't be able to swivel any other way than that. So this is as good as I can get it. That's as far back as I can go without it interfering with the that sway bar mount there. And I think it's gonna get pretty close, but I think it'll clear, assuming if I lock it towards the driver's side all the way, it will move 4 inches this way, and you guys can't really see that, but it gets pretty close. The tie rod will move closer to the axle tube when you're at full lock too, so there's also that, which I think it should clear, and it'll angle in a little bit. So I have it angled, I have this side angled towards the tie rod a little bit a little bit closer than that side. That way, when the tie rod moves in, the tie rod moves into the axle tube, it will pretty much be level front and back, I think. So yeah, we should be good here. I'm just gonna fully weld that in. I think I like where that's gonna be, and then, or I'm probably just gonna tack that up first actually, and then clamp this side up, and then test if it'll hit that. That's probably a better option. Alright, so I welded the bracket in right over there. It's cooling off right now, it's a bit hot. So we're gonna go ahead and run one end of the line. Alright, so I have about, well, it was 10 feet, I have no idea how long it is now, but it should be enough for the 2 lines I need. Anyway, show you guys how to do this while I'm at it. First off, you want to cut it. So I used a cut off wheel on my grinder. You can cut it whichever way you want. You can use one of those hose cutters, but it flattens this edge out, or the hose out, so you kind of have to bend it back out. There's like steel braided wires in there, and then this one has a nylon or some type of fabric on top to protect the stainless. Anyway, so what you want to do, like this end right here, wherever you want to cut it, you tape it up. That way, at least with the cut-off method, you don't want to, like, you don't want these, if you don't tape it up, the steel wire will start coming apart. So this kind of helps it prevent that. This I did with a pick of some sort, or if you have like a small hole punch, you can spread this out. But we need to do that. So before you spread it out, you wanna slip the back of the NPT, not the AN fitting, the back of it in first, and then you, crap, stabbed myself. And then you want to flare out the wires, and then this is the other 2 halves. So this will be the back half. You want to make sure whatever fitting you get is specifically for the type of hose. So this is a PTFE hose, so this is for PTFE, and then they sell these in like rubber hoses, and you can't use this type of the PTFE fittings with the rubber hoses and vice versa. Anyway, so this back part goes inside the tube, and then this pretty much slips over it. So let me see if I can do this with one hand without stabbing myself. So this pretty much slips over the end like that. See if I can do it with one hand here. It's gonna be pretty tight, so you don't want to stab yourself too. You can, I like using the ground. You want to make sure the inside, the PTFE, is up against the flat on this collar here, whatever it's called. So it's pretty tight up against it, and then what you want to do is grab the end of this. I probably won't be able to do this by one hand. Grab the end of this, and you pretty much slip it in there. Make sure the PTFE is going over this and under that, because sometimes it'll like kink in here and then this won't go in. So I haven't really had a problem with it, but apparently that's an issue. So I'll do this. So all you do is push this thing in all the way, and then stab myself again, and then push this one up all the way to here, and then that's threaded, so you just tighten that, and what it does is it pushes this up against here and it creates a airtight seal. Ow, stab myself again. All right, I'm gonna do this off camera and then get back with you guys. Got the pump in. This is welded up. This thing's in. I got the 3 set screws here. I'm about to take them out and then put Loctite on all these bolts so they don't come off, along with this bolt here and that one. I gotta put a cotter pin on there, but yeah, I drove it around for a day and it seems to be doing pretty well. No leaks anywhere except for up here. There's like a little fluid coming out. When I was refilling the fluid up top, I did spill a lot, so I'm hoping that's what it is. It's not leaking from any of these fittings over here or here, so I think it's good. All I gotta do is clean this up and then paint them, and I gotta repaint the orange because I scratched it up a little bit. Yeah, so if you're gonna do the set screw method, which helps clamp it up to the tie rod a lot better, make sure, I've seen people make it pointy at the end. If you do that, you might, and you keep screwing it tight, you might dig into this, which is, I mean, sure, that's what you want, but it'll put dents in this or put a hole in it if you go tight enough, or that point on the set screw could round out and then you'll have a hard time taking it back out. So I put like a little chamfer in the end, and then it's still flat like a normal set screw is, so all it's doing is putting a bunch of pressure on this. Drove it around for a day, and then so what I've noticed is when the okay, you guys can't see anything on that side. When I'm steering, the steering feels the same as before, but because of what I did with the Heim joints, replacing the bushings with the Heim joints, and then putting the spacer here, so this is tight now, the pitman arm. It feels a lot tighter, but it's a lot more touchy, or more tight than what I was used to before, so I gotta get a little used to that, and I'm sure what has something to do with that, or why it's doing that. It's kind of doing that around 40 to 50, and I just noticed it because I've always had play in the steering wheel, so I probably never noticed before. But it's this right here, my power steering pump has this actuator. It's called the Evo something. It electronically controls the flow of the power steering fluid or hydraulic fluid. So after 40 or 50 miles an hour, it cuts power or limits the pressure in the pump so that the gear and everything's not using as much pressure. I think a lot of times everyone's been saying that this thing breaks all the time. So in the future, I'm probably gonna do a delete, replace the pump as well, because I definitely feel the pump wearing out. So when I do whenever I do like an emergency turn. So I would turn left and right really fast. If I do it normally, it's fine, but when I do it really fast, it starts to get stiffer, so the pump can't keep up. Other than that, I did drive this on some roads with a bunch of potholes. There's potholes everywhere here, just to test it out. What was happening before when I get death wobble, I've noticed it would kind of only occur when one tire, either one of these tires, would hit a bump, and then that would shock the whole thing. If both of them hits a bump at the same time, it's kind of fine. I haven't noticed anything happening with that, but it's only when one tire hits a bump or a pothole at high speed, and then it overtakes the system pretty much. And I'm sure that Evo thing's got something to do with it as well, limiting power. So I'm gonna try disconnecting it for now, actually, because I hear if you leave it disconnected, it's just consistent, so it just gives you whatever the fail-safe pressure is constantly, and doesn't, obviously it's not going to be able to read the speed anymore. So we'll see if that works. And yeah, in the future I'll get a new pump, and then what's going to have to happen, I don't know if you guys can see the line for this type with the electronic system. The line comes up here and then connects to the electronic one, where the normal ones comes back here where this is connected. So I'll have to replace my line as well, and then I might as well replace the other one as well, because when you get a higher pressure one pump, or upgrade the pump, if there's any leaks or weaknesses in the system, it'll show. It'll start leaking a lot more. So with these lines, I routed it behind the track bar. I don't know how good of an idea that is, but I was gonna go here, but with these 90s back here, it felt more natural to go behind the track bar, and then with this 90 over here, to go back there. That way when the axle droops, it's not creating a hard bend. I probably could have gone with the straight, but then that would have been in front of the pitman arm when it steered, so I didn't really want that. So the only other way is to get it behind the drag link and in front of the track bar, so right in between. And I don't really know how I would have done that, because the lines didn't. So these aren't like super flexible. I mean, the PTFE hoses can only bend so much before it gets stiff, or you're not supposed to bend it hard, like super hard like that. So I would have had to route it like this way or something, and then snake it into the box from up here. I don't know, but this way seemed to work a lot more naturally. So we'll see how that works at full droop and stuff like that. But you can see this bottom one, well, you can't really see it down here. I have the mark right there for where that notch is on the end of the NPT at the bottom, and it's lined up. And I'm gonna zip tie the top of this. There's a bracket where the old diff used to bolt up to. Zip tie the end up to this, and that way from here back, it's not really gonna move very much, and it's not gonna have downward force. It'll just be up here. So I'm hoping that'll help this prevent that from loosening up. Otherwise, if this pushes down, this is gonna turn left, so it'll block that runway, or the 1/4 inch where the fluid goes, and then I won't have steering on one side. Pretty much I'll have one-sided steering. Yeah, I guess I'll end the video here and see you guys on another video.